Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Sideline Sports Show. Today is Thursday, May 14th, and I thought I'm going to be doing something a little bit different today. I'm going to be kind of giving my take on the Major League Baseball, the future, or my prediction for the 2020 Major League Baseball season, should it happen. And I'm really doing this because there's not a lot else to talk about. Baseball specifically, I could talk about the proposal for the next couple of days because that's really all there is, but I talked about it for 2 days in a row, and I kind of wanted to try to and give a little bit different content. So for the next couple of days, I'm going to be going division by division in Major League Baseball, kind of giving my predictions, where teams stand, what I think is going to happen record-wise, division-wise, and it's just I thought that it'd be a little bit different than what I have normally been doing, and I also thought it would be a good way to kind of keep up the entertainment when there really isn't much going on in sports right now. So without further ado, we're going to start with the American League East, and I'm going to discuss what I think is going to be happening for this season should it happen. Real quick, we're gonna like I said, we're starting out with the AL East. Happens to be the division with my favorite team, the New York Yankees, in it. But we are going to first take a look at how the regular season ended last year. So, for the American League East, you had the Yankees, who won the division by 7 games over the Tampa Bay Rays. Then the Red Sox came in third, the Blue Jays, and the Orioles. Now, for the 2020 season, with the shortened season, it's actually going to be a little bit tougher to put together an accurate prediction, because with only 82 games, a lot can happen, because the 162-game season really gives teams the ability to pull away and kind of build up bigger leads over other teams. And with the shortened season, if a team like the Toronto Blue Jays, who got a lot better in the offseason, get hot at the right time, they have a chance to push out any of the teams above them if that team particularly hits a cold stretch. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens as the season progresses. But like I said, these were the standings from last season. I don't predict much of a change next year. But we're going to start by just going over each team within the division. So we're going to start with the New York Yankees. Sorry about that. Covering my face cam a little bit. So this from CBS is the Yankees' current 40-man roster. So what that means is that Major League Baseball has two rosters. There's the regular season roster, which for the 2020 season was supposed to be around 26 players. And then you have the 40-man. Every year there's this thing called the Rule 5 draft, where a player, if they don't have a contract and they're not on the 40-man roster, can be selected by another team. So more or less, teams put their 40 best players between the major leagues and the minor leagues, their top prospects, on their 40-man to protect them so other teams can't reach out and steal them. So like, for example, Albert Abreu, don't see him being on the major league club. But that being said, with the expanded roster for this season, it is possible that there are more names than you predict. In the bullpen, their bullpen is pretty stellar. You have Zach Britton, Aroldis Chapman, Chad Green, Jonathan Holder, Tommy Kahnle, Adam Ottavino. And that bullpen itself is pretty nasty. And then you get your two lefties in Britton and Chapman, with a bunch of guys that, Chad Green had a little bit of a difficult time last year. So did Jonathan Holder. But those guys, when they're right, could be really, really important and important pieces should the Yankees make a run in the 2020 season. The Yankees did get help in their starting rotation. They did pick up Garrett Cole in the offseason. Everybody's heard about the record contract that he signed. Garrett Cole, J-Hap is going to be really interesting because they sign him. They have him on a pretty large contract. I think it's something around $15 million. And he really underperformed last year. He really struggled as opposed to his year the first time he was with the Yankees. He was there for about half of a year, and he excelled. Really going to look for a bounce back year from J-Hap. Jonathan Loaisiga was a guy that I wasn't sure if he would be competing. I thought he would get a chance to be in the rotation because guys like James Paxton were injured or were supposed to start the season injured, but now obviously Paxton was only supposed to be out until the beginning of June, and so with this delay, I'm not quite sure how it could have helped him in his rehab process, but with, not sure how facilities are open for him to get treatment that he could have needed. But you're looking at a rotation consisting of Garrett Cole. I would have thought Jordan Montgomery, J-Hap, Masahiro Tanaka, and then probably a Loaisiga or a Luis Sessa. But with Paxton coming back, you might bump a guy like J-Hap to the bullpen for Loaisiga, or you might go with the 3 lefty look and the 2 righties because you have Domingo Germán, who's currently restricted for the domestic violence problem. You have Severino out for the year who had elbow surgery. So it's definitely an interesting and newer look for the Yankees in terms of their rotation. You had Tanaka. Tanaka's always going to be a 4, high 3s, low 4s ERA, but he's going to eat innings for you. He's going to keep you in games. Paxton, it depends what James Paxton showed up. Is it the James Paxton that has a 13 ERA in the first inning, or is it a guy that's going to go out there like he did when he pitched against the Red Sox early in the year? He went 7 strong with 13 strikeouts through 7 shutout innings. It really depends who shows up. And my real outlier for this season is Jordan Montgomery, because Jordan Montgomery really hasn't been healthy the last 2 years. He's been on and off the injured list. Had a pretty decent rookie year. He was able to eat some innings, but then he obviously got hurt. So it'll be interesting to see how he does this year. The catching position is pretty much locked up. Gary Sanchez is going to be the catcher with Higgy coming off the bench. I kind of see Higgy becoming like a Romine-esque catcher, catching to give Gary a day off. He can hit a little bit. I don't think he's been getting the number of at-bats he should in his career because he's been stuck behind Romine, who is a fantastic backup catcher. I'm kind of disappointed Romine left, but I understand now he's going to go, he's in Detroit now with a chance to be a starting catcher. It's something he never really had because he was stuck behind guys like Russell Martin, Brian McCann, and then obviously Gary Sanchez for the last 5 years. I do think Higgy is going to be a good backup because we all know Gary Sanchez has a little bit of an injury problem. He has been on the injured list frequently. So having a pretty solid backup like Higashioka, I think, is going to be good for the team. In the infield, it's interesting. Obviously, on here they don't have Miguel Andujar. You'll have Andujar. They actually have him listed as designated hitter, but I have a feeling you're going to get an infield that's looking like Luke Voigt playing first base, Glaber at shortstop, DJ LeMay who plays second base, and then third base, I really think is whoever's going to be hot. If it's Urshela or Andujar, I think Andujar is going to get the benefit. I think Urshela should get the benefit of the doubt because when Andujar came off the injured list last year, he wasn't very good, and then he obviously got hurt again. So I think it should be Urshela's job to lose, and I think Aaron Boone has said such in spring training. But it'll be very interesting to see how that all plays out because Andujar is clearly going to be able to hit, but he can't play defense. And Urshela, prior to last season, hasn't been a hitter in his big league career, and he's always been a defensive first kind of guy. It'll be interesting to see if last year was really a fluke or if he can hit. And obviously LeMahieu, the machine, who was incredibly consistent for the Yankees last year, was probably their team MVP. It'll be definitely something that'll be looking for. In the outfield, you have Judge. Hicks is out for a long time with his elbow, July 1st, so he would be just starting to come back when the season starts, but not sure if his rehab has been pushed back or might have even been expedited. Brett Gardner looks to be the Yankees center fielder when the season opens the 4th, assuming it should, with Giancarlo Stanton in the outfield and Tauchman. If Judge and Hicks are out for the beginning of the season, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw an outfield that included Clint Frazier. I think for a long time everyone's been asking why the Yankees have been hanging on to Clint Frazier. Is because whenever he goes to the minor leagues, he's been able to hit, and when he was in the big leagues, he was able to hit. People he does seem to have a little bit of an attitude problem. Refusing to report, but eventually reporting to the minor leagues when he was optioned. But I think the problems you run into is that you get out, these three in particular, Hicks, Judge, and Stanton, when they're on the field, are outstanding. But the problem has been keeping them on the field. Aaron Judge hasn't had a healthy season since his rookie year in 2017. Aaron Hicks has been hurt twice now with his elbow. Giancarlo Stanton was out for a substantial amount of time, and they're paying him a lot of money. People forget Aaron Judge is 28. He's in his prime of his career, and he's been hurt for a number of years. So I think it's something that definitely have to look at, and it'll be really interesting to see how the season rolls along, if these guys are able to get healthy, or if they will be stuck on the disabled list, and that'll open up at bats for guys like Clint Frazier. And I really think this season is going to be his make it or break it year. I know it's probably not a fair statement to say because it's not going to be a full season, but I think this would be the year he gets some opportunity, and it'll just be really interesting to see what he does with it. Gardner's on for 1 year. Not sure if his contract's going to get renewed at the end of the year, but that's something that we'll have to see when the time comes. And then Duhart, he'll probably DH some games if Stanton's in the outfield. The issue you run into with these two guys is that they're defensively they're just not they're more of a detriment to a team as opposed to being assets. So ideally you'd be able to DH Stanton and put Andujar maybe in the outfield, maybe put him at first base. I know that they were thinking about those two things, but then you lose a guy like Luke Voigt. I mean, it's a good problem to have for the Yankees, having too many valuable pieces on a team, but guys like Andujar who are still young, he's 25, he needs to get consistent at-bats in the major leagues. That'll be the best way for him to progress. But obviously, you guys like Urshela, if he's hot, it's going to be even more difficult to keep him off the bench. Tyler Wade, I've never been a big fan of. He's kind of just here, kind of can do whatever is needed of him, play short, play second, can run around the outfield really fast. He did play well in spring training, so it'll be interesting to see how that rolls out. But I think for the time being, I think the Yankees should be the favorites in the American League East, just because I think their roster is a lot more solidified. I think there are a lot more question marks with the next top two teams, with the 2 and 3 team, in my opinion. But I would look for the Yankees to be the division winners when this season rolls around. And the thing that we have to consider is with the expanded playoff format, 14 teams are going to be making the playoffs. So it opens up the door for teams like Tampa Bay to make runs and definitely clinch wild cards. And, if the Rays are hot at the right time, they could push the Yankees out of first place. But I think on paper, the Yankees should be the team to beat in the American League East. Coming in second place, I have the Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays have just been a team that don't follow any sort of mold or traditional Major League Baseball format. They just kind of go out and do their own thing, and it works for them. Their pitching is a strong suit. They got guys, Jose Alvarado, Nick Anderson came out of nowhere. These two guys are money for them in the bullpen. Guys like Diego Castillo, Yanni Chirinos, Oliver Drake coming out of the bullpen. And obviously we know that Charlie Morton, Colin Poche, and Tyler Glasnow, Blake Snell, Chaz Rowe, Ryan Yarborough, they have a lot of pitching that they kind of spread the wealth with because they don't run the traditional starting rotation. They run the openers. They really kind of piece together games, and you can tell that based on their roster. They really have a lot of their rotation and pitching is really kind of veteran-based guys in their late 20s, early 30s. Charlie Morton, I think, is their oldest pitcher at 36, but these are guys that come out of nowhere really it's like Brian Cashman turned, Gio Urshela DJ LeMahieu, these guys, everything he touched turned into gold. The same thing is for Kevin Cash. Whoever he seemed to throw out on a game has gone and done what they're supposed to. And I think their pitching is the strongest aspect for the Tampa Bay Rays. I think that they're going to be, I can't really break down their bullpen or starting pitching because they don't have solidified, because they just do kind of whatever they want, but what works for them works for them. I'm looking for Blake Snell to have a bounce back year, kind of struggled down the stretch coming off his MVP 2 years ago, but he's already talked about on his Twitch stream that he's not coming unless he's getting paid his full salary, so be interesting to see where his head's at if the season starts to resume. Behind the plate, you have Mike Zunino. Mike Zunino is a top defensive catcher. Absolutely would. He's probably one of the better defensive catchers in baseball. Can't really hit. He's probably gonna hit 15 home runs for you, hitting the low 220s, but he'll play a good catcher for you. These two backups right here. Michael Perez is going to be the backup, but I think Ronaldo Hernandez is definitely going to be a minor league catcher because I don't see him getting any at bats, assuming Mike Zunino is healthy for the 2020 season. In the infield, you got Willy Adames playing short, who did a really good job for the team. Vidal Brujan, very good prospect. Don't see him being in the major leagues. Ji-Man Choi over at first base. He's been a lock. He's been really consistent. He's only 28. You feel like he's been in the league forever. Yandy Diaz came out of nowhere, played a big role for them down the stretch. Brandon Lau at second base. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a good. He's a good piece. Daniel Robertson, don't see him getting many at-bats. He'll probably be on the bench. Tsutsugo, I see Tsutsugo being their everyday designated hitter or potentially running around in the outfield. I don't see him playing first base. I think that's Choi's spot. But many people predict Tsutsugo to be the American League MVP. And then obviously Joey Wendell, it's competing with Brandon Lau for second base, for second base or even third base, depending on how Yandy Diaz does. But I think this infield is really underrated, but it's gonna be good. In their outfield, Kevin Kiermaier, Manuel Margot, Austin Meadows, Hunter Renfroe. That is a solid outfield. I do think that there's the potential that Kevin Kiermaier is a defensive outfielder. He really won't hit for you, so I wouldn't be surprised if you see guys like, if he's not having a great year, and you get guys like Renfroe and Meadows or Margot, one of them sliding over to center field, and you have Tsutsugo running around in one of the corner outfield spots. I don't see Jose Martinez being their starting designated hitter. I see that going to Tsutsugo or Renfroe if you want to but I mean Renfroe's defensively he's very good, so I would see Tsutsugo or potentially Choi being their designated hitter over Jose Martinez. I think Jose Martinez is going to be a good bench bat. I feel like that was a decent pickup they made for Matthew Liberatore, but I don't think he's going to be contributing right away. I think the Rays have a lot going for them. They're going to contend for the top spot in the American League East, but I do think the New York Yankees are going to be the team to beat over them, but I think the Rays are going to be a close second and definitely one of the top teams in the American League, definitely winning a wild card, and I definitely think they're going to be making the playoffs. Moving right along, I had the Red Sox and the Blue Jays kind of interchanged for third place because no one knows what the Red Sox are going to do. They came off the investigation where, I mean, granted, they weren't punished for it. Some people are saying because they didn't do anything, so there was no evidence. But I just think that Rob Manfred wanted to just sweep everything under the table and move along and just kind of forget about everything, even though it's going to be very difficult to do that. Pitching is probably where it's going to be is going to be a big issue for them. Matt Barnes was a solid reliever. Ryan Brazier, when they went to the World Series and won it, he was a key member of the bullpen. He imploded last year. Nate Eovaldi, it depends what Nate Eovaldi, he got shelled or he was lights out. Martin Perez, he can be beneficial for you, but he's been hit or miss in his career. He hasn't really been solid, but he's been in the league for 8 years. Eddie Rodriguez, he was probably the Red Sox best pitcher last season. He's definitely going to be looking to have another lights out year. Still only 27, really entering his prime. And I think this is the biggest question mark for the Boston Red Sox. Is Chris Sale going to be healthy? I'm sorry. How are they going to combat Chris Sale being out for the year because of his elbow? I think if you looked at him in spring training, he looked sickly thin. He's supposed to be their ace. Last year he was terrible, battled injuries. This year out for the year with an injury. I just don't see them being able to take when Chris Sale's on the mound and going right. He's one of the top pitchers in baseball, and I don't think you can replace that with what they have. I mean, their bullpen: Ryan Weber, Josh Taylor, Brandon Workman. These are guys that have been good in years past, but they're not. I wouldn't call them proven names, with the exception of maybe Matt Barnes, who was a top reliever for a long time. I think he's probably one of their best pitchers coming out of the bullpen, and Eddie Rodriguez is going to carry the pitching staff. I mean, I probably, I put them ahead of the Blue Jays, but I really don't know that I can say they're better. Xander Bogaerts was a sneaky MVP pick last year. He had a really solid year. Michael Chavis came out of nowhere playing for, kind of diamond in the rough at first base. Su-Wei Lin looks to be their second baseman, with Devers playing third base. Mitch Moreland, I believe, and Chavis will probably be platooned. Obviously, no Dustin Pedroia. He's still out. And it'll be really interesting to see what happens. But I think that a lot of question marks. Let me say, the left side of their infield is very strong between Devers and Bogaerts. Both of them are top players. Devers is only 23, but he plays a game like he's been there for years. Their outfield: Benintendi, Pilar, Bradley, Verdugo. I think Verdugo is going to end up in right field, and and Benintendi is going to lock in left, because both Verdugo and Benintendi can hit. The problem you run into with Pilar and Bradley is that they're both the same player, except Jackie Bradley hits left-handed. I think a lot of it will come down to potentially these two will be platooned. Bradley and Pilar will be platooned, so against a right-handed pitcher, you get Bradley. Against a left-handed pitcher, you get Pilar. I think it just depends who's hot and who's hitting well. And then obviously J.D. Martinez, I would say J.D. Martinez is between him, Devers, and Bogaerts is their best player between the three of them. Obviously, they lost a lot in Mookie Betts when they traded Mookie. He was their best player defensively. He's probably one of the top 5 in baseball. So it's going to be hard for them to make up that, especially not having their ace at all this year. It's definitely going to plague them on the pitching staff. I do think they have the potential, if players play at or above their expectations, they have a chance to sneak in for the last playoff spot, but I really don't see them making the playoffs, and I really see them struggling this year. Moving on, we have the Toronto Blue Jays. Toronto Blue Jays made a lot of sneaky additions this offseason. Notably, they brought in Hyunjin Ryu, Matt Shoemaker, guys like that to lead their pitching staff, and Yamaguchi from Japan, Tanner Roark, guys that are veteran presence that potentially could carry their pitching staff. Their bullpen anchored by Ken Giles, who had a bounce-back year, who was a top reliever in baseball. Picking up Ken Giles, I think, was a great move for them. Retaining him is even better, but we've seen two types of Ken Giles. We've seen Ken Giles, the lights out close, and then we've seen Ken Giles, the guy who punches himself in the face because he gives up, go-ahead home runs. So it's interesting to see which Ken Giles will show up. Sam Gaviglio, he'll be there. Chase Anderson, I think, is a veteran presence that could potentially contribute on the mound. You got Anthony Bass. Names that you would never hear of or you never think of, even if especially if you're a casual baseball viewer or even a somewhat invested baseball player. Not many people know a lot of these names, but they're guys that can definitely make a difference. And it'll be really interesting to see how they contribute. The catching position is a very, very interesting for the Blue Jays, because Danny Jansen is a power bat, defensively a little weak, but he's definitely the better hitter of the two. Reese McGuire, defensive catcher who can hit a little bit, but it's more for contact. He's going to hit you singles. He's not going to hit the ball, off the wall or over the wall. Potentially see the catching position platooned, as they're both only 25, and I think both of them should be getting reps, so you could potentially see a platoon. But obviously, with like a lot of baseball, it all depends on who's hot, and being a left-handed bat, Reese McGuire may get more at-bats, but Danny Jansen, it's going to be interesting to see how Charlie Montoyo, their manager, deals with what he's got. In the infield, probably the most exciting infield, Bo Bichette at short, Kevin Biggio, Vlad Guerrero. That infield, I don't see, and Rowdy Tellez at first base. I don't see that infield changing much. Joe Penning's a local guy, went to John J. East Fishkill, St. John's product. Fell off the face of the earth. I think at one point the Giants' top prospect, winning Gold Gloves, winning World Series. Now all of a sudden, 6 years in the big leagues, making probably the major league minimum. But between Guerrero, Biggio, Bichette, and Tellez with Brandon Drury, Drury's has a chance to beat out guys like Tellez, but I think I think Tellez has done a good enough job in playing first base. I think he'll be an important piece. Could always slide Drury into the outfield because their outfield really isn't. I wouldn't say their outfield is kind of. I wouldn't say set because guys have had bad years, but you look at Derek Fisher's probably going to come off the bench with Randall Grichuk playing right, probably their 4-hitter. Lourdes Gurriel, solid. Teoscar Hernandez, sneaky power, fast as hell. Lourdes Gurriel, I think, could play. Be towards the bottom of the order. Teoscar Hernandez hitting in the middle with Grichuk and Tellez and Guerrero. The Blue Jays have a sneaky team. I might actually put them above the Red Sox to be favorites to play third base. I think that I now that I look at it a little bit more, I think the Blue Jays have a chance if they play really well to sneak in for a last, wild card or last playoff spot. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Blue Jays because they're a team that's just kind of filled with players you don't know about and a lot of homegrown talent. But at the same time, they are very, very good, important. They're very good players that people sleep on. Travis Shaw was a sneaky pickup. He could probably be their DH. Good power right-handed bat. Didn't have a great year in Milwaukee last year, but I'm looking at him to be a bounce-back and impactful bat in the middle of that order for the Toronto Blue Jays. Now in last place, the team that seems to be in last place forever is the Baltimore Orioles. Baltimore, their best player is probably Michael Givens, and their best hitter, unfortunately, was diagnosed with colon cancer when this all started, Trey Mancini. So hopefully Trey Mancini will get healthy pretty soon so he can be back, but obviously he'll be out for a long time. Trey Mancini himself could win them probably 5 games a year just being a power hitter and being able to make a difference offensively, but now that that's gone, they lost probably one of their second best player, Jonathan Villar, traded him to Miami, and their pitching staff is not strong. Nobody wants to, most of these guys are. John Means was runner-up in Rookie of the Year 2 years ago, so okay, maybe he can make a difference. He's probably their best pitcher. Other than that, Richard Blyer is their best. I would say him and Michael Givens are their 2 best bullpen arms. And and the Orioles, I can't really say a lot about the Orioles because they are in deep rebuild mode. Chance Sisco is probably going to be their catcher, or Pedro Severino. But don't be surprised. I'd be surprised if Adley Rutschman is a big leaguer this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if you see Adley Rutschman, the top pick in 2019. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Adley Rutschman in 2021, the starting catcher for the Baltimore Orioles. He is that good of a player, and they need something right now. Chris Davis, guy was a perennial MVP for a couple of years, fell off the face of the earth with 56 at-bats without a hit. Hanser Alberto, 27. And Jose Iglesias has been around forever. Can't really hit. He hit a little bit with the Reds, but he'll be playing defensive short. Richie Martin. I can't really say a lot about these names. Their outfield is probably their best. You got Dwight Smith. Trey Mancini's out for the season with, he has cancer. Austin Hayes is a great outfielder. Ronaldo Nunez, DA. I can't, like I said, I don't really know enough about these guys because you haven't seen them. We haven't seen. If you look with Major League experience, Sean Armstrong, has 5 years, but he hasn't made a lot of appearances. Richard Blyer has 4 years and he's 33, so he came in when he was 29. You see a lot of. Alex Scott was hurt last year. He could be good, but you see a lot of rookies, 1s, 2s. Chris Davis has been 12. The only reason he's still around is because they still have to pay him and nobody else wants him. Rookie 2, rookie 3 guys don't have a lot of big league experience, so I really don't know a lot about them. You only really saw them last year. But this team, I don't see them going anywhere. I see them finishing probably with one of the worst records in baseball yet again. I don't see them being I don't see them winning a lot of games. I just don't think that they have enough players to complement one another who could be impactful. So I think in the end we are going to be looking at standings that are incredibly similar to last season, with the New York Yankees, Tampa Bay. I'll have Toronto probably above Boston, maybe winning a playoff berth. Not quite sure. Orioles definitely finishing at the bottom. Alrighty, guys, so that's going to do it for today's episode of the Sideline Sports. I know it was a little bit different. It wasn't, as the other podcasts have been. We kind of switched it up a little bit by doing the going over the division, the AL East. Tomorrow we're going to be doing the AL Central, so definitely a little bit. It's gonna, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you do, let me know. And most certainly tomorrow I plan on doing the AL Central, but if all of a sudden breaking news comes out or something big happens overnight, I'll definitely talk about that. But if nothing happens, if it's another slow day in the sports world, we will definitely be talking about the AL Central, kind of giving you the same take on a similar video as to today. But like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed. Stick around. We'll see you guys. Hope I can see you guys tomorrow, and you guys enjoyed the video.